Hi, welcome to Business Influencers. My name is Chris Salem, your host. Welcome to the TALRadio platform, part of the Touch of Life Foundation. We welcome all new listeners to our Business Influencers show. And again, feel free to check us out also on Spotify, Apple, and our YouTube channel at Business Influencers under the TALRadio platform. Today's show is being brought to you today by Alumni Direct. Alumni Direct is a new social media community platform dedicated to bringing alumni together from all different generational types, an opportunity to either meet new people for the first time or rekindle those old relationships from your college days. Now, it's not limited to just college. Again, you could form any group that could correlate to a fraternity, a sorority. Perhaps you're a professional athlete now transitioning to everyday life. There's a group for everybody. And if you would like more information and how you can have more access to content without those noisy notifications that you get from other social media platforms, feel free to check out Alumni Direct at alumnidirect.com. That's alumnidirect.com. Well, we got a great show for you today and a powerful story that you are going to hear from today. The title of today's show is called Unfragile. And I can tell you right now, I was so moved by this man's story and what he's been through. And he's such an inspiration for so many. And you're going to get an opportunity to hear today and an opportunity to reach out to him if you feel like, again, if you're going through something that he might be able to help you with. His name is Alphonso James. And when he was a 17-year-old child in 1985, he was arrested and falsely convicted of first-degree intentional homicide for a murder of a man that he had never seen or met. After a brief 2-day trial, he was sentenced to life plus 5 years in prison. Although he has been physically confined and dealt with seemingly impossible obstacles to his release, Alphonso found freedom and liberation within himself. He went from a third-grade reading level to earning degrees in theology and culinary arts and authoring a memoir. Alphonso worked faithfully and with the courageous belief on his own process of inner healing. And today he walks in a hard-earned spirit of love and forgiveness. With tireless persistence and the work of the Wisconsin Innocence Project, Alphonso was finally freed in 2017 after 32 years of confinement for a crime he did not commit. Besides righting the wrong of his conviction once and for all, Alphonso is committed daily to inspiring others to break free of the prisons within themselves and pursue their own journey of healing. And without further ado, we welcome Alphonso James to the show. Alphonso, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Chris. Oh, thank you for those wonderful words.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. You know, I guess we'll start, Alphonso. I mean, just you're such a humble human being, someone, everything you went through, you approach everything with a smile and with grace. Talk a little bit about that process, I guess, because, many people that listen to the show could be going through their own trials on whatever levels those are, and not only in business, but also personally. And sometimes we can't sweat the small stuff, but sometimes when we go through these really life-changing events in our lives, talk about that process and what you went through and what you became as a result as a man.
Oh my goodness. That is a great question. And it's loaded.
It's loaded. It's a loaded question.
Oh my gosh. I remember, just being a young teenage boy, uneducated. I was really never attracted to a higher level of education, academics, but I was always attracted to like making people smile and getting and distracting people from their personal issues in life. And all of a sudden, when I think in the early 80s, breakdancing was introduced to the culture.
I remember that. You and I are the same period. I remember those days.
It was ridiculous. And so me and a couple other guys who actually, we grew up, we went to grade school together, we hung out together, we thought that we would never amount to anything. We dropped out of junior high school together. So it was the identity thing that we struggled with. Just growing up without a father in our home and just trying to figure out who we are within our community. And so we went through about where we just went through, we called it identity crisis. And I guess I was the perfect person to be picked up at that particular time because I struggled with low self-esteem. I struggled with depression. I used to stutter so badly where I was so embarrassed to talk in front of people. It was just not something that I was accustomed to doing. And so finally, July the 27th, 1985, I was arrested on an unrelated crime. I remember as we went into the police building, and at that time I couldn't read, so there was this big word that was upon this room, and it was homicide division. So I was escorted into this small room where there was no nothing in there, but I still carry with me the burden of being me. So anytime I was in a pretty much environment like that, it was easy for me to be broken because I had no idea. And so I went through much of my young life trying to figure out who I was and what I was to become. So when I ended up going to prison falsely, I was able to develop, I call it a skill now, but I began to develop a skill where I had a strong craving for higher learning, not only on the academic level, but on the spiritual level. And so once I began to journey there, and actually in the most darkest place of my life, not only was I inside a maximum security prison, but while there, I was inside the solitary confinement, which is a prison within the prison. We were only allowed an hour to come out to either go to recreation or go to shower. And each time that we was removed from our cell, you had to have like a full bottle shackle, handcuffs and shackles on. So I'm saying all this to say that it was all the odds were against me. Everything that you can imagine that could happen to a person, happen to a young person, eventually happened to me. It became a nightmare. So for me to channel my energy, I had to figure out, how do I turn this nightmare into an adventure? How do I turn this adventure into something of a form of elevation out of this point of this physical confines? So I began to dig within myself, and that's when I began to identify all these roadblocks that was in the path of me for all those young years. Had I been equipped to deal with these type of things at a younger age, I would have been a lot better. But that's neither here or there. I think that everything happened in life for a reason, and I just believe that portion of my suffering, it was pretty much became a blessing to me because it was able to draw out of me the impurities, but pour into me some pure things.
Yeah, I love how, like what you said, like here you go, your life is turned upside down, convicted for a crime you did not commit. Education at the time was not something that was high on your list.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, now you go into prison, you got all the odds against you, like what most people would also just assume. But how you used that time to really embark on a spiritual and
Yeah.
also an intellectual journey,
Yes.
and how you self-educated, and it also, went through your process
Yes.
spiritually to be where you're at today. And probably wouldn't have been able to maybe help people like you're helping today had that be gone through. And sometimes we look back and we go, wow. I mean, I didn't, never wish for those things to happen, but when
Yes.
they do, and it's beyond our control, it's like you adapted to what is and made
Yes.
the most of that situation.
Yes. And it goes back to that one person can be a difference maker, and it reminds me of the pebble in the pond, the ripple effect. There was one person when I spent the 5 years in solitary confinement, there was a chaplain that visited me on a regular basis. And I tried to make his visiting me in the hold the worst experience of his life, but it ended up being the best. So I began to open up to him because I saw something in him that I not only hated, but I respected, because he was a godly man. He was a loving man. And his approach is pretty much something that disarmed me, because I had never been approached by a human being ever like that before. And so while I was in this dark place, he began to believe in me. He began to listen to me, but also he began to sow a seed of hope. And I believe when he said that, Alphonso, you're going to do great things and you are a great person, irregardless to where your environment is. He said, you just have to figure out a way how you can elevate your thoughts. Don't be captive by the physical presence. but be captivated by the omnipresence of how you able to remove your soul from your body and begin to excel in places that hardly anybody had ever experienced. I had the unlimited peace and unlimited love while I was in that place. And so that's why I felt so compelled to reach out to other men. Our circumstances were, of course, were different, but the needs were the same. They needed to be loved, they needed to be respected, and they needed to be heard. So I thought that, okay, during my moment of suffering, why not focus on them and less on myself? And so that's how I was able to pretty much get through those things.
Wow. Powerful stuff. And just like I said, just an example of the resilience and patience that I think is fabulous. And I think, so many people that are listening, what you think you're going through, sometimes those challenges and obstacles are actually, even though they're unpleasant, actually could be blessings in disguise in what you can become later as a result of it.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Because you never know you never know what your capabilities are. I mean, oftentimes people would say to me, they was like, "Well, how did you get through it? If I was in your shoes, I don't think I would be able to." And I reversed it, and I was like, "Well, had I been into your shoes and all the challenges that you experienced in life, I probably couldn't get through those things either, because each of our lives, we have this condition that, okay, we reach a certain point in life. Okay, I'm satisfied with that. No, I'm not satisfied. I don't want any glass ceiling to prevent me from not only growing but expanding. And I really believe wholeheartedly that the 32 years that I had suffered physically, it was only preparing me for when I was returned back. A funny story. For 32 years, Chris, every morning, I would wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I would fold my linen and whatever institution clothing I had, I would fold it. And I would fold my mattress and sit on the edge of my bed in a maximum security prison. The guard would do his rounds. And so he would stop by. He's like, "Alphonso, Mr. James, why are you packing your things? Are you going back to SIG?" I was like, "No, sir, I'm about to be released." And so he looked at me, he's like, "Well, you have 105 years. And I was like, I never accepted that, because first of all, I'm in prison for something I didn't do. And second of all, you are going to be the one to turn the key and release me." Even though it took 32 years for this to literally happen, but I had the faith to see back then what the end results was going to be. So I was always in a position of readiness.
Yes, I love that. I love that. What can you say, like, based upon what you've shared so far, Alphonso, and and if somebody's listening to the show right now that's really in a very difficult space, maybe in their business, maybe in their personal life, a combination of both, what would be the first thing that you would recommend to them?
Develop an attitude of gratitude, irregardless to what type of storms that may come your way. Just know that the sun is behind it. And I think that that's the challenge, is that we have to, like, when it rains outside, most people will go outside and I say, "Oh my God, it's storming." But when I go outside in the midst of a storm, I see the rain, I see the sun beyond that point. And I think that that's what a visionary is. You can be a visionary in many areas of your life. You can be a visionary in your personal relationship and the child rearing, or you can be one in the business aspect. But you have to be able to take yourself out of the moment, put yourself in the future, and believe that you're walking that path and that course.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love what you just said there. And and in terms of, like, when it comes to going through this process, is it something like that on a daily basis? Like you mentioned gratitude. Like I do a gratitude list every evening before I go to bed. So it's like I make sure that I don't, if there's anything I went through, I'm not taking those issues with me to bed. I'm clearing my mind. I'm getting rid, and I can go to bed and sleep and wake up refreshed and not feel like I've been, when it went 10 rounds with Rocky or something like that. So with that being said, do you recommend anything else that you might share about, other than gratitude, as something that helped you, through this process?
Prayer. Oh my goodness, Chris. Prayer. I wrote a lot. One thing I did.
I love that you wrote. I love that.
Yeah. I journaled. I journaled for probably like 25 years and until I felt comfortable enough for it to allow someone to read. And that's when the idea of a book. But originally, in fact, to get a little personal and to get a little deeper with that
Sure.
question, while I was in solitary confinement, like when I was in grade school, I was like this lively kid, was excited about learning. And then all of a sudden, something drastically happened that changed all of that. As an 8-year-old kid, I was molested, but I had blocked these things in my mind to a point where I was like, I'm becoming the baddest little boy. I'm gonna, so I was trying to impose my will through the trauma that I had experienced. But once I was in solitary confinement and I started journaling, I discovered those things that I had numbed for so many years. And so the first thing that I was allowed to do is to go back to that 8-year-old boy and let that 8-year-old boy know that it was not your fault, that you are loved, and that you are more than what other people had viewed you. So that writing began the healing process. And as the healing process began, that's when I pretty much diffused anything that was on the inside of me that wasn't truth. All the lies, all the naysayers and all those type of things, those are another type of battle. But once you walk the course and understand fully who you are, life happens. Things happens. We know we experience different levels of suffering, but it's how you suffer. When you get to the other end, that's who you're going to really be.
Yeah, it's so true. I love what you just shared there. I look back on my journey very similar. I went through some difficult things in my life, but now, like I said, I look at these challenges as opportunities.
Yeah.
And then I can take that opportunity and hopefully I can turn it into a result.
Yes.
Or take something that was very difficult and use it as a learning experience
Yes.
to, do something different.
Yes.
And I've learned it. Do you feel like, I don't know if you've done the same thing, but I always approach things from intentions rather than expectations, because I can't control other people in situations, but I can control myself.
Yes.
So I can control my intention. So I learned to not attach myself to the outcome, but focus on the process, trust what I can't control, my faith, and focus on my intentions each day to move the ball forward. I felt like it's gotten me through, the last 27 years when I went through this transformation through my own journey, so to speak. But, what was that like for you? Like when you got out of prison and now you're coming into the everyday life and you're going, wait a minute, this isn't like the 80s when and I'm coming into like, this is 2017. What's going on here?
Oh my goodness. The first thing when I was released, it was like I was seeing these people. My daughter had came pick me up with my family.
Yeah.
So we're driving and I'm seeing all these people in the city look as though they're talking to themselves. And I'm looking at my daughter. I was like, all these people are crazy. What's going on? And so she was like, oh, Pops, they have earbuds in their ear.
Yeah. You're like, what are those?
Yeah, what are those? And I was like, oh. And then she said, these are cell phones. And it was like I was dropped off into the future and no one educated me on any of the technologies. And so I went through a stage of where I was still functioning emotionally as a 16, 17-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Because I had never driven a car. I never lived on my own. And so it was a super challenge. And I kind of almost lost my family because I didn't know how to deal. I knew how to prepare myself while incarcerated for the release, but I didn't know what to do after release.
Yeah.
And so it took me a few years before I finally came to terms like, okay, I'm out here. What can I do to be a difference maker in the community? And so I ended up moving back to the community where the crime happened at, because that's where the forgiveness and the healing
forgiveness
and the
came
love.
in, where your life changed completely in that environment. Yes. Wow.
So I just wanted to return back and just show them. In fact, I visited a couple people a few months ago where I showed up on their floor and there was witnesses in the case. And I showed up at their front door and they began to describe the case and the person who they believe was responsible for the murder. And I told him, well, I was the young kid that was convicted. And the whole porch we just bawled like little kids. And everyone expressed their apologies and even has gone as far as writing David on my behalf, just saying that, they should have came forward sooner. And they're so grateful that I turned out the man that I am. So I'm happy
That's
to hear.
fabulous. And you came in there with no hard feelings and forgave them and made peace.
Yeah.
Incredible, incredible. And it's so powerful, Alphonso, when people like yourself that can do this and bring this energy into the world. And this is your mission. Your mission is to go out there and bring this message not only just to adults, but to children, teenagers as well. That don't let these difficulties in life hold you back. There's always something good in all of us that we can learn from the hard sides, the difficult sides of our lives, that we can bring value to ourselves and others.
Absolutely. And and the Unfragile came about. I was talking to a couple of my mentors, and they was like, what's the opposite of fragile? And I never heard of Unfragile ever in my life. And so we looked the word up, and it actually means strength, unbreakable.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, we're going to take on this. And so we ended up coming across I was locked up 32 and a half years to be exact. We came across a family that owns a farm, 32.5 acres, and they're willing for us to, they're allowing us to come create the Unfragile farm, the healing farm, where we're able to open up our arms for anyone that is looking for their purpose, that is looking for healing, that is looking for just to be loved and be allowed to be them and grow in that space. So we're making this available for everyone.
Oh, I love it. Such a great thing, such a great cause. And, you're more than welcome to share details about that as we get towards the end of the show. Yes. Anything else that you haven't shared, that we haven't talked about, you feel that could really benefit the audience from your experience, or, what we're talking about on being unfragile?
Well, you mentioned the word a moment ago, Chris, transformation.
Yeah.
And when you think about transformation, you think about the cocoon butterfly effect. And I remember thinking as a kid, okay, I'm going to help this cocoon open so that I can release this butterfly, this future butterfly. But the reality of the matter is that while the cocoon is struggling, while that's bringing them strength, they're giving them strength in its wings. And so if anyone prematurely allow this process to stop, then you'll kill that seed. And so that's what I live by, is that there's a transformation period in each one of our lives, from boyhood to maleness to manhood, from girl to womanhood, and all those type of things. But we have to be aware of the process of this transformation. And in order for it to develop any type of strong roots, the storm has to come. But we have to embrace ourselves to the point where we don't cling to the storm, we don't hold on to the storm, and we're not afraid of the storm. But what we do is we have to tell ourselves that these things are coming only to make me stronger and become a better person for humanity. Because the suffering that we most time experience is not necessarily for ourselves. It's a part of the transformation or the growing up part, but it's for other people. It's to be a testimony to others, to let them know that if I can, although our circumstances are different, you're able to, and I'm willing to walk that path with you in order for you to be the best version of you. So we just have to believe more in one another and love more.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. Great message. I really think that was powerful what you shared. What I wanted to do, in this next few minutes as we conclude the end of this show, Alphonso, what is the best place that people can start to get to know you? Maybe where you're speaking, where can they find you, get in contact with you, and anything that you'd like to provide or share with the audience?
We're still in the early stages of setting all these things up, but we do have Unfragile podcast, which is you can find it on podcast under my name, and then that will also lead you to other information as far as to what we're doing and what our future event plans are.
Got it. Well, we definitely want to encourage everybody. to really get their hands around the Unfragile concept, tune into that podcast. And anything else that you would like to share, any final statement to the audience, it's all yours, Alphonso.
First of all, Chris, thank you very much for this opportunity. Oh my goodness, to finally be heard. I spent most of my life just feeling as though I was invisible. So now I'm finally able to be seen and heard and appreciated. I want to thank your audience as well, because to be able to sit there and listen to the trauma in someone else's life and then have compassion in your heart to respond, even though you are in your own trauma right now. I think that that's a great aspect of who we are as not only a community, but humanity. And I know that there is still great work to be done, but I believe that as a community, as a country, we definitely can do this. So I just want to pretty much just let everyone know I do appreciate the support that I've received around the country. I feel love, I feel appreciated, and I am so grateful. Thank you so much.
We are so grateful to have you, and we can't, the compassion and just the humbleness, it just oozes out of you. And people got to get to know you, Alphonso. And I know you're going to touch a lot of people's lives. And we encourage anybody, if you're meeting planners or event organizers, get in touch with Alphonso. Be a great speaker for your next event. Just a lot of value, touch a lot of hearts, get a lot of engagement. We highly encourage that. And we'll make sure that in the show notes, we'll have all that information as well. Alphonso, we want to thank you again for taking the time to be here. Greatly appreciate you and everything that you're doing. And I know this message is going to continue to be carried out all around the world through your podcast, your appearances on other podcasts, and as you get out there, as you're speaking more and more on different stages around the world.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. And listeners, we want to thank you each and every week joining us here at Business Influencers. Again, we are committed each and every week to bringing subject matter experts and inspirational people like Alphonso in to share their words of wisdom to help elevate your level of influence to the next level. It's stories like this that are inspirational. They're going to help you to get through any of the challenges that we face in life and business to get to the next level. We want to thank you again, and we will see you next week. Take care.